Ashtatarashata Shishimad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudeva Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Swami Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keśavāṣṭakam Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Bhagavat Śrīla Gokṣaras Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai. Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vṛnda Ki Jai. Nam Acharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vṛnda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Raja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradate Giriraj Mahārāja Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kunna Shama Kunna Ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. I was wrong yesterday. I thought yesterday was Saturday. I thought it was the 17th yesterday. And so that's why I read about Śrīla Bhakti Hridaya Bhanu Goswami Maharaj and Ramanujacharya. I thought it was their appearance day. But actually today is their appearance day. So, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Śrīla Bhakti Hridaya Bhanu Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi Ki Jai. And and Shri Ramanujacharya Ki Jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi Ki Jai. And we're going to read an article by Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimad Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Goswami Mahārāja Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vṛnda Ki Jai. Samavata Gaur Bhakti Vṛnda Ki Jai. Shnitaya Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Right now I'm not sure if you can hear, but there's a dust storm going on. And so my internet might cut off. That happens lots of times in these crazy dust storms. So anyhow, let me know if it does, the internet stops. Send me a message. Okay, sorry guys, I should have done this before. So now we're going to sing Shri Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam, Shri Keśavāṣṭakam for our Keshav Vrat program. Just sharing my screen. There. Wait, let me make sure this is working. External microphone, advanced settings. Let me take away. O Gange achampe atare vininde roche pravaha snapitatma vrinde bandhu ka bandhu dyuti devyāvāsa vrinde namaste charana ravindam Bimbadarode Twara Mandahasana Sagra Mukta Jyoti Depita Se Vichittaratna Varana Shiyade Vrinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Sabhasta Vaikunta Shiro Manoshe Krishnasya Vṛndāvana Dhanya Dhani Dattati Kare Vishabhanu Putra Vrinde Namaste Acharana Ravindam Taragaya Palava Pushpa Bringa Brigati Bir Mādhava Ke निकुञ्जा मध्वादिभिर्पान्तिविभूषमाना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं तदीयदूतेन निकुञ्जयुनोर् अद्युत्कायोगे विलाससिद्धि तत्सौभगं केन निरोचतं तद् वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं रसाभिलाषो वसतेष्टवृन्दावने तरेशाभि सरोजसेवा लव्या च पुंसां कृपया तवैव वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं कीर्तसे सात्वततान्त्रविर्लीला विदाना किल कृष्ण शक्तिस् तवैव मूर्तिस्तुलसी निलोके वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं भक्त्याविहीना अपराधलक्षाक्षिप्ताष्टकमातितराङ्गमते कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं वृन्दाष्टकं या शृणुयात् पतिर्वा वृन्दावनादेशपदाच्च भृङ्गं सप्राप्य वृन्दावननित्यवासं तत्प्रेम सेवां लभते कृतार्था वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं जय वृन्दादेवी जय वृन्दादेवी वृन्दादेवी जय वृन्दादेवी जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृन्दादेवी तुलसी महारानी जय वृन्दादेवी नवप्रियकमञ्जरी रचितकर्णपूरश्रिया विनिन्द्रतरमालती कलितशेखरेणोज्ज्वला दरोज्वसितयुक्तिका ग्रथितवल्कुवैकक्षकं व्रजे विजयिनं भजे विपिनदेशतकेशवा निषङ्गि मणिकस्तने प्रणतशृङ्गि पिङ्गे क्षणे मृदङ्गमुखि धूमले शबलिहंसि वंसि प्रिये इति स्वसुरविकुला तरलमभयन्तमुदा व्रजे विजयिनं भजे विपिनदेशतकेशवा घनप्रणयमेतुरान् मधुरनार्मगोष्ठीकला विलासनिलयान्मिलय विविधवेषवेदोदिना सखेन किल सरया अतिशुहासयन्तं गिरा व्रजे विजयिनं भजे विपिनदेशतकेशवा शमम्बुकनिकावली दरविलीडगण्डान्तरा समूढगिरिधातुभिः likita charupantram puram udancharali mandale Jyotibidam divakralakam Braje vijayinam bhaje vipinadeshata Keśavam Nibaddha navatarnaka vali vilokanodkantaya Natat kura putanchalar alugubir puvam bindate Kalena tavala gata lagu nirvartayantam pura Bhaje vijayinam bhaje vipinadeshata Keśavam Padankatati virvaram virachayantamadvashiyam Chalattarala naichiki Nichaya dulito mrasaja Marolla hari chanchali Akrita tukola chodanchala Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśavam Ilasa murali kala Tvani birula sanmanasa Shanara kila pallavi Pulakayantamanta grihe O muhor vidadatam hriti Pramuditancha goshteshvarim Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśavam Upetyapati sundari Tati virabhirabhyachita Smitam kurakaram pite Natarapanga bankeshatai Stanastava kasanchara Nayana chanchari kanchala Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśavam Idam nikila pallavi Kola mahotsavolasana Kramena kilaya puman Patati śrīla-bhajana Tamojvaladiyam sada Nijapadara Vṛndā-dvaye Ratindadara chanchalam Sukayata vishakta saka Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśavam 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 Jaya Keśavadev 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 Jaya Keśavadev Jaya Keśavadev 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 Jaya Keśavadev. One second. People were looking at me through my window and I got distracted. Just need to cover something up. Okay. All right, so today's article is an extra special one. It is by Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja. And we have a group called, a WhatsApp group called Making Time for Kirtan. And somebody in that group, Revati Didi, she shared this beautiful article by her Param Gurudev, Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja. And it was such a helpful article. It's one of those kinds of articles that whenever I'm feeling down and whenever I'm feeling hopeless, I just can read this and it will give me all hope. It's a really special one. So Āmāra Bhajana, my devotional practice. And this also appeared in Rays of the Harmonist number 11, Kartik 2002. And there's also a link that she gave to Srila Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Goswāmī's website. I had this article. 1 second. All right. And the sound and everything is okay, right? I think so. Yeah. Okay. My Devotional Practice by Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja. Why I renounced the world. I have long left worldly life. Why did I leave it? I did it simply to engage in bhajan, devotional service. Bhajan of whom? Shri Krishna. Why bhajan of Shri Krishna? Shri Krishna is the sole cause of all causes, and I have an eternal connection with him only. Who is Shri Krishna? Shri Krishna is that existence which is saturated with complete bliss. He has the ability to attract all other living entities, and by virtue of this, he personally experiences bliss and also bestows bliss upon others. He is replete with unlimited knowledge. The seers of the truth know him in his threefold aspect of complete knowledge, existence, and bliss. Tattva Vastu, the absolute reality, which is fully Satchidananda, is indeed Shri Krishna. Who am I? As a part of his potency, I too am composed of existence, knowledge, and bliss. I am not Vastu Tattva, the absolute reality, but as part of his potency, I have aspects of existence, knowledge, and bliss. Therefore, I have an eternal relationship with him. What type of relationship do I have with him? I have a relationship in every respect with Shri Krishna only. 1 second. Shri Krishna has two energies, material, apara, and spiritual, para. I, as the conscious existence, the soul, am the cause and part of Shri Krishna's para energy. And my existence in the form of the effect, the body, is part of his apara energy. The material energy, apara energy. Knowing that I belong to him in every respect, I renounced worldly life to eternally dedicate myself to his bhajan. My gross, subtle, and spiritual bodies are forever related to Shri Krishna. Thus, with all my senses, I will at all times and in all circumstances attempt to engage myself in his service alone. This is my bhajan. Just 1 second. Is my sound... I'm just going to turn on these settings. Okay, my initial resolve for bhajan. Now a question arises. Was it not possible for me to stay in my normal worldly life to practice such devotion? Of course, I certainly could have remained there, but I would have had to cater to the tastes of others. This was the main obstruction I faced in living amongst those who were antagonistic to Shri Krishna's service. That was unpleasant. I never wanted to make my valuable life unsuccessful by spending even a moment of it in activities other than serving Shri Krishna. To attain the opportunity to constantly engage my different senses in loving service to Shri Krishna, I obtained by great fortune the association of a most compassionate person, who is the abode of affection, the dearmost servant of Mahaprabhu. With loving compassion, he overlooked my disqualification, and to enrich my greed for bhajan, he accepted me as his own. Upon receiving a touch of his mercy, I enthusiastically resolved to engage all my senses exclusively and continuously in the bhajan of Shri Krishna. Consequently, I set out with determination to follow all the primary injunctions of the scriptures regarding the cultivation of knowledge of the soul, and not to this temporary material body. surfacing of my anarthas. Spiritually inclined people saw that I was becoming indifferent to material affairs and that I was engaged in the cultivation of spiritual practices. They started to honor me, considering me a sadhu, a saint, and thus I became respected. I had resolved to one-pointedly cultivate spiritual life by submitting myself for rectification as a disciple. Unfortunately, however, I once again started to hanker for the luxuries of this body and for worldly prestige, impelled by my previous bad samskars. I had always greatly revered and loved my Sri Gurudev. Now, however, due to this burning urge to satisfy my senses, many a time I think him an obstacle to my devious ends, and have started looking at him with a different attitude. I no longer consider him my well-wisher. I have some reverence for him, so I cannot control him. Nor can I accept his discipline, because it would hinder my whimsical nature. Thus, I find myself stuck in these two crises. Although I had originally resolved to perform bhajan of Sri Krishna, gradually I have forgotten this aspiration. My endeavor now externally exists in name only. In fact, other than desiring to satisfy my senses, nothing brings any substantial delight to my heart. I used to consider myself fortunate upon gaining any opportunity to serve Sri Krishna, but now I see such opportunities as troublesome. I used to feel myself blessed upon attaining service to Srila Gurudev, but now that very same service seems burdensome. I used to be enthusiastic to serve devotees, that is, the Vaishnavas and saintly people, but now I am apathetic to the very suggestion of such service. My mind becomes perturbed if I am not always praised and honored in every way by being offered an elevated seat, costly clothes, and palatable dishes. Fearing public opinion, I often feel too shy to openly express such expectations. So fearing public opinion, I often feel too shy to openly express such expectations. But I wonder how long I would continue to be counted as a bhakta if I did not receive all this. The sole pleasure of my senses has become prominent, taking place of Sri Krishna's bhajan. Now, my priority is to serve my senses. If by chance I perform some service for the sake of Sri Krishna or Sri Guru and Vaishnavas, after or during the course of my selfish pursuits, then and then only am I able to perform bhajan. The hypocritical attitude. Although I daily used to sing the glories of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas, now within my mind, I consider myself none different from them, that is, equal to them. I am gradually trying to accept their position, and I cherish the desire to attain this world with the Vaishnavas and Sri Bhagavan as my servants. My object of worship is no longer Sri Krishna, but my whimsical nature. In public gatherings, I never fail to collect fame as a great Vaishnava by openly declaring myself the servant of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas. However, the truth is that within my heart, I refuse to consider myself inferior to them at any cost. The external respect I used to give to Sri Guru and Vaishnavas was only a device to establish myself in the society as a saintly man and thus earn prestige. Assessing myself. It is not that I have not reflected time and again that I have become immersed in this sorry plight. I used to consider that knowingly or unknowingly, I must have committed some Vaishnav aparad. Offenses to devotees usually lead to the waning of bhakti. Slowly, such offenders end up being victims of sensual urges and entrapped by kapatata, self-deception. I am sometimes able to detect my faults, but because I fear public opinion and the loss of my false pride, I am reluctant to win the good grace of the devotees by humbly asking their forgiveness. I am more involved with winning the false adoration of worldly-minded people, and I neglect the pleasure of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas. My extreme misfortune. Sometimes, to impress the ignorant and eager for their adoration, I pretentiously take to the practice of solitary bhajan, and sometimes I take to the occupation of a mendicant, engaging in begging for my subsistence. All these attempts, however, do not satisfy my restless mind, and because I do not receive my full expectation of adoration, my unrestricted mind finds substitutes to satisfy it. In this way, my bhajan of Sri Krishna now culminates in attempts to secure wealth, to, I don't know how to say this word, lies, it means cooperate on a matter of mutual concern. Okay. To liaise with women in the hope of attaining their merciful glance. Wow. And make them do my bidding, or to secure fame. Seeing my wretched condition, my true well-wishers and friends on the spiritual path repeatedly counsel me to refrain from these whimsical activities and take again to the protective guidance of Guru, Vaishnavas, and Shastra. Previously, when I considered their instructions to be nectarian, I bade farewell to worldly pleasures and came to perform bhajan, my spiritual practices. My extreme misfortune, however, now keeps me in the guise of a saint, directly or indirectly impelling me to become mad in the pursuit of wealth, women, and prestige. Instructions for my welfare no longer seem beneficial. I had heard that Shastra mentions two paths, Shreya, the superior path, and Preya, the way of natural tendencies. I had left Preya to pursue Shreya, but my misfortune has brought me back to my old ways. I am no longer eager to hear holy recitations of Srimad Bhagavatam or anything about Sri Bhagavan. How many times will I have to hear the same old stories? Drowsiness usually overcomes me as soon as I give my attention to such narrations. But sleep does not disturb me at all when I relish common worldly gossip. I could remain wide awake the entire night just to engage in such gossip without experiencing the slightest distaste for it. I have forgotten the words of Bhagavatam. Therein it is stated, Shinvata Shraddhaya Nityam Grinantascha Sacheshtitam Kalena Natidirgena Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. For those who hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and who always take its subject seriously, the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna will manifest in their hearts within a short time. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.8.4. The message of Sri Krishna in Sri Gita regarding Abhyas Yoga, constant devotional practice, has slipped from my memory. Having heard a little bit about Bhakti, I have impulsively begun to profess well-versed knowledge of it. I am convinced that with my senses, which are full of lusty desires, I have understood what a bhakta is meant to be. And now only Sri Bhagavan remains to be known by me. I have forgotten that the transcendental aspect of bhakti and the bhakta cannot be reflected upon or understood with my mind, which is full of sensual desires. Similarly, I have forgotten the glories of surrender to the Supreme Lord and the Spiritual Master. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyo name daya na bahuda shutena yame vaisha vrinute tena labhyas tasyai sharatma vrivrinute tanung swam. The Supreme Lord is not attained by expert explanations, vast intelligence, or repeated hearing. He is attained only by one chosen by He Himself, and He manifests His own form to that person. Mundaka Upanishad 3.2.3. Even after repeatedly hearing these words of the Shrutis, I do not remember them, and I have forgotten that the association of the Bhaktas and Bhagavan is never attained by the ascending process. I observe that sometimes that means trying to elevate yourself by your own endeavor. That's ascending process. On your own strength. I can raise myself to transcendence by my own effort. I don't need anybody else's help. I observe that sometimes my mind is inclined to perform austerities, and at other times it is inclined to perform pious activities, even though I fully know that neither of these processes can bring one to the association of the Bhaktas and Sri Bhagavan. But I have forgotten this. Rahuganaitat tapasa nayate na chejaya nirvapanat grihadva na chandasa naiva jalagni suryar vina mahatpada rajobhishekam. My dear King Rahugana, unless one has the opportunity to smear his entire body with the dust of the lotus feet of great devotees, one cannot realize the absolute truth. One cannot realize the absolute truth simply by observing celibacy, brahmacharya, strictly following the rules and regulations of householder life, leaving home as a vanaprastha, accepting sannyas, or undergoing severe penances in winter by keeping oneself submerged in water or surrounding oneself in summer by fire and the scorching heat of the sun. There are many other processes to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only revealed to one who has attained the mercy of a great devotee. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.23. Naishamatistavar urukramangrim sprishatanarta pagamo yadarta mahiya sangpada rajobhisheka nishkinchananam navrinitayavat. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava who is completely free from material contamination, persons strongly inclined toward material life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be freed from the material contamination. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.32. I have forgotten the earlier vows in pursuit of devotion that I took in the presence of my spiritual master. Those vows were in connection with being the servant of the servants of Sri Krishna and to not allowing any selfish ambition to remain within me. My only ambition was to serve Sri Krishna along with his parikars. I started to perform bhajan with the highest objectives to be had within the realm of the universe. Why have I then rejected it all to take to the insignificant and temporary pursuits of trivial sense enjoyments, which are generally misery-bound? I do not reflect upon the cause of this with a sober frame of mind. The pretense of yukta vairagya. I once used to think that to maintain my life, ample wealth was necessary, and that a woman who could submissively cater to my whims was necessary for the satisfaction of my senses. Now I read such verses as Jato Shado Makatashu Nirvina Sarvakarmasu Veda Dukatmakan Kaman Parityage Pyanishvara Tato Bhajetamang Prita Shadalur Dridanishchaya Jushamanaschatan Kaman Duko Darkangschakar Hayan. Having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. Wow, I really like those shlokas. Just try to memorize that. On the pretense of adopting yukta vairagya, I have become complacent. I reflect that, after all, in my stage of sadhana, which is full of anarthas, bad habits are bound to exist. I therefore think that these statements have been given eternal license to my passions. That's why I like that shloka so much. Oh my God. But these statements actually mean that gradually one must control the inferior habits and selflessly endeavor for bhajan with no expectation of any return. I support my anarthas on the strength of another fault by thinking that for sadhak, these anarthas are bound to exist. This fault is known as vipralipsa, the tendency to cheat. There is no scriptural support for such unrestricted indulgence of the senses. This too I have forgotten. Hey. Okay. Until I become eligible to relish Shuddha Bhakti Ras and absorb myself in the service of Bhaktas and Sri Bhagavan, Shastra has cautioned me not to give up bhajan, but to perform it while accepting those sense enjoyments that are... Shastra has cautioned me not to give up bhajan, but perform it while accepting those sense enjoyments that are necessary, all the while condemning them. If I do not condemn such sense enjoyment, but fondly accept it, I have no way of ridding my heart of it. I have forgotten all these statements. My dismal state of affairs. In fact, meditating on the glories of lust, sense enjoyment, the association of women, sufficient wealth, and worldly fame will surely lead me to become eventually attached to them. I came to perform exclusive bhajan of Sri Krishna, but I have been allured by the glories of associating with women. I have rejected celibacy to yearn for marriage, having forgotten its transient nature. What fate would await me if I married? Previously, I had definitely renounced this world, but in contemplating momentary pleasures afforded by wealth and forgetting the grief that occurs in such ventures, I have become enamored by the endeavor to accumulate wealth. I am eager to win the fickle adoration of worldly people who are blinded by their madness for sense gratification, and I do not reflect upon the anarthas that accompany such deeds. I have therefore disregarded the instructions of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas, and displeased them. At times, in my mad pursuit for distinction and prestige, I have not only neglected and offended them, but have become opposed to them. It is not that my dismal state of affairs has not disturbed me. Many a time I have analyzed my depraved life, and how, by leading it, I have spoiled my chances of attaining the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, who is supreme auspiciousness and full of bliss. I have spoiled my chances by acting against my own ultimate welfare. Within my mind, I sometimes become determined to lead a righteous life in every respect, but impelled by the results of my previous actions, sometimes, unknowingly, I become unrighteous. In this state, I ask, is there any hope for my ultimate welfare? I definitely think so. Full dependence on Bhagavan's mercy. I may fail any test in any circumstance, but I will not be discouraged. I will continue to traverse the path of sadhana bhajan, and my master, who is eternally worshipable for me, most compassionate and the deliverer of the fallen, will definitely shower his blessings upon me. Krishna kripa kori ben, drida kori jane. A fully surrendered devotee always hopes that Sri Krishna will be kind to him. This hope is very firm in him. It's from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 23:28. Dubalo jadi na dube dube va. Even if my boat has sunk and I am drowning, I will not give up my efforts. This principle will give me strength. I will not become bereft of hope at any time. No tendency other than bestowing bliss can remain in Bhagavan, who is the embodiment of complete bliss. He is the controller of everyone, and therefore in his dispensation, there must be an arrangement to bestow bliss, and only bliss, upon me. I am his servant, so he will surely protect and maintain me. Of this there is no doubt. Bhumau skalitapadanam bhumireva valambanam tvayijata paradhanam tvameva sharanam prabho. Just as the ground is the only support for those whose feet have slipped, you are the only shelter even for those who have offended you. It's from the Vigyapti Panchak 3. Remembering this statement again and again, begging everyone forgiveness for my offenses, and fully dedicating myself to the service of Bhagavan and his dear associates with determination, I will continue to offer prayers to the Bhaktas and Bhagavan with a service attitude. It is only by their merciful blessings that I can overcome all my tendencies other than that to perform bhakti and attain bliss by rendering service unto them. Service to the Bhaktas, that is Guru and Vaishnavas, and Bhagavan, is indeed my bhajan, my devotional practice. Translated from Sri Chaitanya Vani, Year 3, Issue 1. Courtesy of Pujapad Śrīla Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj. Wow, he gave that article in 2002. That's really cool. Can I just read this last part one more time because it's just so beautiful and so important. I may fail any test in any circumstance, but I will not be discouraged. I will continue to traverse the path of sadhan bhajan, and my master, who is eternally worshipable for me, most compassionate and the deliverer of the fallen, will definitely shower his blessings upon me. Krishna kripa kori ben, drida kori jane. A fully surrendered devotee always hopes that Sri Krishna will be kind to him. This hope is very firm in him. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 23:28. Dubalo jadi na dube va. Even if my boat has sunk and I am drowning, I will not give up my efforts. This principle will give me strength. I will not become bereft of hope at any time. No tendency other than bestowing bliss can remain in Bhagavan, who is the embodiment of complete bliss. He is the controller of everyone, and therefore in his dispensation, there must be an arrangement to bestow bliss and only bliss upon me. I am his servant, so he will surely protect and maintain me. Of this there is no doubt. Bhumau skalita paranam bhumir eva valambanam tvayijata paradhanam tam eva sharanam prabho. Just as the ground is the only support for those whose feet have slipped, you are the only shelter even for those who have offended you. Remembering this statement again and again, begging everyone for forgiveness for my offenses, and fully dedicating myself to the service of Bhagavan and his dear associates with determination, I will continue to offer prayers to the Bhaktas and Bhagavan with a service attitude. It is only by their merciful blessings that I can overcome all my tendencies other than to perform bhakti and attain bliss by rendering service unto them. Service to the Bhaktas and Bhagavan is indeed my bhajan, my devotional practice. Wow, that is just a phenomenal article. We're so lucky to have such compassionate Guru Varga. Wow. Okay. Man, that was just too much, man. All right, I'll do a little Mahamantra. Oh wait, let me take off this noise suppression thing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Diya Parashad Vṛnda ki jai, Nitilapavishta Mahabhagavat Śrīla Gaurkisharas Babaji Mahārāja ki jai, Nitilapavishta Shiva Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai, Nitilapavishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja ki jai, Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai, Nitilapavishta Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmad Śrīla Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Nitilapavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmad Śrīla Bhakti Balava Tirtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Nitilapavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmad Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath, Shara Gosvāmī Prabhu ki jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari, Shri Gaur Parshada Vṛnda ki jai, Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vṛnda ki jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala, Gaura Mandala, Braja Mandala, Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaja ki jai, Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda ki jai, Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vṛnda-devi ki jai, Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai, Shri Keśavāṣṭakam ki jai, Vrat Palankari Bhakta Vṛnda ki jai, Shri Nitilapavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmad Śrīla Bhakti Hriday Ban Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai, Shri Ramanujacharya ki jai, Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vṛnda ki jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vṛnda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Dandavat Pranams Vanchakalpatarubhyas Vṛndāya Tulsi Devai Priyāya Keśavāṣṭakam Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatāya Namo Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. And I'm sorry that my connection, I'm not even sure if the internet was working, because it says chat restream server IP address could not be found. So I don't even know if it's live right now, or if anybody's seeing anything. I can't see your comments. But anyways, thank you for joining me in reading this article. And we'll have to read it again sometime, because it was so essential, so helpful. Yeah. All right. See you all either tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening. Jai Shri Radhe.